It was the summer of 1884, deep in the Colorado Territory, where the land was stubborn, the men even more so, and power was measured by the cattle on your range and the silence in your name. The Callaway Ranch stretched wide across that dust-blown land, 15,000 head of cattle, 60 ranch hands, and one man at the top who didn't take kindly to questions, Silas Callaway. But this story ain't about him. It's about his son, Garrett Callaway, a man raised in the shadow of a legacy so large it left no room for doubts or dreams or love. Garrett walked into the study with the same expression he wore during a cattle auction, calm, firm, unreadable. The room smelled like cigar smoke and old power. Silas didn't look up when he spoke. "It's time." Garrett didn't flinch, just stood tall. "Time for what?" Silas slid a folded envelope across the desk. His voice was flat as an anvil. "You're marrying Evelyn McCrae, this Saturday." Garrett blinked once, not from surprise but disbelief. Evelyn McCrae? The girl from the Ridge? Thought that family was all but dust and pride. Silas leaned back in his chair. "She's still got her father's land, barely. And she's the last of her name. Joining with us makes sense." Garrett crossed his arms. "So now I'm breeding stock?" "You're a Callaway," Silas said, voice hardening. "You don't marry for flutters and fireworks. You marry for land, for legacy. Just like I did." Garrett stared at his father, the man who built an empire without ever once saying the word love. He wanted to argue, to laugh, to walk out. But something in him, something old and tired, stayed still. "You even know what she looks like?" Garrett asked. "Pretty enough, sharp enough. That's all that matters. You'll say the vows." The air outside was thick with dust and judgment. Garrett walked past the stables, past the bunkhouse, past the fence line where sky and land touched and nothing felt certain. Evelyn McCrae. He remembered her, vaguely, the way you remember a storm from a decade ago. Quiet girl, smart eyes, kept to herself. But if the stories were true, time hadn't been kind, and neither was this bargain. He muttered to no one, "This is madness," but deep down, buried under duty and drought-hardened skin, a single question echoed louder than the rest. What if she isn't what they say? 2 days later, the Callaway Chapel stood dressed in sun-dried cedar and silence. There were no roses, no ribbons, just wind, dust, and the sound of whispers carried through old wood and narrow pews. Garrett Callaway stood at the front of the chapel in a black coat and boots polished enough to reflect regret. His hat rested on the bench beside him, one of the few signs he was taking this seriously, even if his jaw was clenched like a locked gate. The crowd was small, a few ranch hands, a preacher who owed Silas a favor, and a handful of townfolks who came to witness history, or scandal. Evelyn McCrae hadn't been seen in public in years, not since her father died, and her family name fell out of favor like a horse that couldn't run. Then came the creak of the doors. She didn't ride in. She didn't glide. She walked, measured, straight, veiled. Her dress was simple, dove gray, buttoned high, no frills. The veil shimmered like mist over morning grass. Garrett didn't move. He expected nerves. He expected awkwardness. Instead, she moved like someone who'd practiced being underestimated. The preacher began, the old vows, the familiar words. "Do you, Garrett Callaway?" "I do." "And do you, Evelyn McCrae?" Her voice was soft, clear. "I do." "Then you may lift the veil." Garrett hesitated, just a beat, then reached forward, fingertips grazing the lace, and slowly drew the veil back. And there she was, not plain, not forgettable, not meek. Evelyn McCrae had the kind of beauty that didn't beg. It waited. Her eyes met his, steady, unwavering, And for the first time in years, Garrett Calloway felt uncertain. Not because she was stunning, but because she knew he hadn't expected her to be. She stood there, calm, composed, untouchable. And he suddenly didn't know whether he'd just made the worst mistake of his life, or the best one. The Calloway ranch house was big, not just in square footage but in weight. Every plank carried history, every nail a name. And now it had 2 more names inside, joined by law, not love. Garrett opened the front door and stepped aside like a gentleman, or maybe just a host. Evelyn entered, eyes steady, boots echoing lightly on the polished floorboards. She took in the place with a single sweeping glance, not admiring, assessing. "This where I'm expected to stay?" she asked, voice calm. Garrett nodded once. "Room down the hall's yours. Mine's across. No warmth, no welcome. Just architecture and obligation." Evelyn unpacked in silence. Books, a worn journal, a leather pouch of dried herbs, a small framed photograph of her father. The kind of items that carry memory like scent in old clothes. In the room across the hall, Garrett sat at the edge of his bed, shirt unbuttoned, rubbing the bridge of his nose like it might explain anything. No words had passed between them since the veil came down. No awkward laughter. No gestures of affection. Just the sound of 2 doors clicking shut in perfect unison. Evelyn was up before dawn. She didn't tiptoe. She moved with intent. By the time Garrett stumbled in, hair damp, boots loose, she was already seated at the kitchen table, a cup of black coffee in front of her, and the ranch's financial ledger open beside it. He blinked. "You're reading the books?" "You left them out," she said, flipping a page. "I figured I'd learn how this place breathes before trying to change its lungs." Garrett frowned, pulling out a chair across from her. "You always talk like that?" "Only when people assume I'm not thinking." Something passed between them then. Not heat, not yet. Just a pause. The kind that said, "I see you. I'm not what you expected, and neither are you." Garrett cleared his throat, reached for his coffee, and took a long, slow sip. Not to drink, but to buy time. Evelyn returned to the numbers without another word. And for the first time since she'd arrived, he wondered, what else does she know? Out here, a dry wind and a careless spark can ruin a legacy faster than a 6-shooter. Fire ain't just danger. It's reckoning. Garrett was out at the south fence line inspecting a busted post when the smell hit him. Not wood smoke from a campfire. This was different, wild, sharp, fast. He didn't hesitate. "Fire!" he yelled.